UNSC Nukes. Let's talk about them. Also check out my link tree or my memberships. And of course, speaking of memberships, a special thank you to all of these lovely individuals. We got a few of them right now because they were gifted a membership by the wonderful Ghost. Mr. Overheat,
タッチくん
Ruby Missile Launcher, Ronald Mean, Blue Lyre, Fate Long Name, I don't know what my name is, Mood Honestly, Nya, Nibble, Native Guy, President, Fallen from Heaven, Paelea, Ghost 772, and oh, yep, that's the list. Big or small, atomic oblivion is for all, starting with the military-grade MFDDs, or medium fusion destructive devices. These are portable nukes that can be used for extraction, mining, and obliterating swaths of the battlefield as a tactical nuclear device. These things are simple. They are described by the encyclopedia as a bare cylinder with a keypad that can be anchored to something like a missile for remote detonation. In some extreme cases, they can be detonated manually. MFDDs include, but are not limited to, the Havoc, Fury, and Fenris, to our knowledge. Starting with what is more than likely the lowest yield of the bunch, Mizria Armory's Fury is a tactical nuke employed by the UNSC with a yield approaching a megaton. We're still in the kiloton range. It is actually pretty small, with a length of 12 inches or 30 centimeters. In Halo First Strike, it's described as an oversized nuclear grenade. Spartans Fred, Joshua, and Kelly threw the nuke into the gravel lift of a cruiser. When the nuke went off, it was in the underbelly of its victim. For that matter, the Covenant shielding worked against it, acting as a buffer that trapped the bulk of the Fury's effect within it. Following that, the cruiser suffered a series of secondary detonations, becoming the, as Kelly puts it in the book, biggest fragmentation grenade in history. Fun fact, the blast radius of a Fury is roughly 1.3 kilometers. Assuming it's about 900 kilotons, well, a 900 kiloton bomb would have a fireball radius of about 1.34 kilometers. If detonated on the ground, I'm assuming the words blast radius here means fireball though. Because a Fury would cause damage, not including radioactive fallout, at a radius of 11 and a half kilometers, give or take, maybe. Next up, the Fenris. We don't have a lot of knowledge about the specs of this thing, which is a shame because they've appeared a lot, from, well, Camp New Hope to Onyx, but we do know a little. Fenris warheads have super-hardened cases to contain the detonation for longer and boost the thermonuclear yield. Whether or not that would work, I don't fucking know, I don't study nukes. Hi, so, these pauses are done when new information comes to me. I'm gonna continuously emphasize this. I know fuck all about nuclear physics beyond the ABCs of the basics. I'm gonna get things wrong. Some of them were indirectly caught by my good friend Installation00, who gave me some really helpful info. I'll be explaining the basics of fission and fusion later on, so really, we're just gonna talk about how the casing works right now. Basically, to get into it, nukes are too powerful, and as a result, a lot of the material that can be fused or split won't have the time it needs to reach criticality before the casing ruptures and you get the fireball that you see in nuclear explosions. Essentially, only some of the uranium or plutonium actually ends up getting used. Some or a lot of it just winds up getting blown up and scattered like everything else. As such, you really only want the casing to contain the blast for just a tiny bit longer, not too long, just a tiny bit, to allow more mass to react and go boom. The blast goes out, container contains it for a fraction of a second longer. This forces the blast to roll in on itself, compressing the payload to become extremely dense and fuse even more of itself. It's literally just your basic energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. The amount of energy released is based on the amount of mass, reaching criticality and reacting. These cases, by the way, are really resilient, including to small arms and smaller kaboom booms, to the point of being considered useless without the actual detonation codes. The Fenris is low yield, but unlike the Fury, we don't have an estimate. I only put this bad boy above the Fury simply due to its extensive use and the fact that apart from what we do know of the design, well, it's made out to be a bigger deal than the Fury. These nukes were going to be decommissioned by 2552, but as the Covenant War turned out to be the fucking Covenant War, well, the UNSC kept them in service, which is better than the Halcyon, and that shit was mothballed by 2552. No, the Pillar of Autumn's refit doesn't fucking count. There's a reason we have the Autumn class now. And now we have the Havoc. Very famous. Also an MFDD. I wish I had those. There have been multiple variants, including turning it into a mine. No. Not a space mine. That shit's in the dirt, baby. Granted, it can only be detonated remotely. The Havoc has a yield of 30 megatons. It's a clean thermonuclear weapon. Okay, hold on. How is a nuke clean? So, clean bombs are a nebulous term. They're basically nukes that achieve fusion using a little bit of fission, not a lot of fission. Basic bitch nuke design 101. You've got fusion and fission. Fission is what we use today in things like reactors. It's also what was used in the atomic bombings of World War II. I'm not going to dive into the differences between fission and fusion. That's a whole wibbly-wobbly jumble of science things that I'm not able to understand. I enjoy studying it, but I don't get it. So, here we go. TLDR, fission is what makes the notorious nuclear waste. Okay, no, we gotta go deeper. Another clarification, because I am someone who believes in a nuclear future. Nuclear waste is a ridiculous boogeyman. Nuclear energy is really clean. There is no such thing as the ooga booga, yellow barrels with green goo. Woo. You know what? Fuck it. Time for a lesson. Settle down, kids. Mama's got science and history to shove down your collective throats. So, I know I'm not going to be able to give a fully fledged, in-depth breakdown. I don't have the know-how for it, and it would take too long anyhow. If you're curious after this video, I will gladly refer you to the brilliant Kyle Hill, who, unlike me, knows what he's talking about. He's actually been to places like Chernobyl, and he's a huge proponent of nuclear energy. So, fission, again, oversimplifying heavily, is the splitting of a heavy and unstable nucleus into two smaller nuclei to release a fuck ton of energy. You might know this as the splitting of the atom, whoa! Fusion is the inverse, where two small nuclei are fused together into a larger nucleus as a means of releasing a bigger fuck ton of energy. Fission produces waste because, well, it's inefficient. Okay, that's the wrong way of putting it. It's still incredibly efficient. But when compared to fusion, it's really not that efficient. When a fission reaction occurs on purpose, you are deliberately separating an element, like uranium. Remember, you're splitting a nucleus into two smaller nuclei. That doesn't mean the material goes somewhere far away. You've basically just split up an element. So in place of the uranium as an example, you get stuff like barium-141, krypton-92, xenon-140, strontium-90, iodine-131, cesium-137, ruthenium-106, etc., etc. These are known as fission fragments. Alongside the fragments, fission will release a handful of neutrons, which will then hit other uranium nuclei, leading to a chain reaction. So, take uranium-235. You can represent the reaction as well, this fucking thing which I do not intend at all to break down, for all of our souls' sakes. Well, congrats, you are now separating lots of uranium, but what are you going to do with the radioactive fission fragments? Because these fragments will decay into other radioactive isotopes, which, well, emits harmful radiation when in significant doses. The activation products, isotopes formed from neutrons interacting with things like the reactor vessel or coolant, will also contribute to the radioactive waste. Adding to this, remember, fission is, by nuclear standards, inefficient, and there will be a little bit of uranium that just simply doesn't take part in the reaction. Some of it might even transmute into other isotopes without undergoing fission at all, so this adds to the waste. And some fission products and transuranic elements, elements heavier than uranium, have long lives. They will remain radioactive for a long time. These are the ones that are infamous in their supposed difficulty, in heavy quotation marks, in terms of waste management and disposal. They're challenging, but we solved storing them a long time ago. I'll refer you to Kyle Hill on that. And then we have to consider fuel cladding. So basically, the materials used to contain the fuel and other reactor components can themselves be contaminated with substances over time. When they are no longer useful, they also need to be managed as radioactive waste. But here's the thing. Again, all of this has been solved for a long time. We've solved it. It isn't uncommon for nuclear waste to just be stored on site. We have many ways of storing waste, and that includes the scary long-lived isotopes. Ooh! And for that matter, nuclear energy just doesn't produce all that much waste. Want to know how much your bog standard nuclear reactor or station makes? 3 cubic meters. 3. That's 1.5 to 2 refrigerators. A year. There are 440 currently active reactors in the world. So that's like 660 to, 880 refrigerators. There are currently, 1.4 billion refrigerators on the planet for reference. On the flip side, in 2019, we emitted 37.04 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide and other waste materials as a result of fossil fuels, coal power plants, and other non-clean forms of energy. And unlike fission energy, which mathematically has a whopping fatality rate of 1 death every quarter of a century, we lose 7 million people every year to air pollution as a result of burning coal, oil, and natural gas. This is just air pollution. We're not even getting into other things. People see things like Chernobyl and think, oh, but what about this scary thing? Chernobyl's Reactor 4 was mishandled. Reactor 4 was a mishandled stick hut with a flammable fucking roof run by the Soviet Union in the goddamn 80s. I know the tankies don't want to hear it, but the Soviets sucked. They sucked at everything. They managed... And they sucked at managing anything. Every achievement it made was a result of political bullshit and brute force. It was an inefficient, corrupt, bureaucratic disaster piece of a nation that never even came remotely close to recovering from the fucking damage brought on by Stalin. Stalin's legacy meant that even with things like, the Khrushchev thaw, the nation was rotten at a fundamental level to its end in ways that are still felt by every single post-Soviet collapse state today. Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, it doesn't fucking matter. They all suffer from that legacy of corruption, of bureaucracy, of bullshit. Oh, they won World War II. No, the Allies won World War II. The United States gave the Soviets $11 billion, or 148 billions in today's money, worth of Lend-Lease alone. We're not getting into all the tracks, railways, factories, tracks and railways are the same thing, rail cars, factories, etc. that the Americans gave them or helped them run. And still the Soviets found a way to fuck those up. Shut up! Chernobyl isn't just a freak accident, it is one of the USSR's many cases of short-sighted corruption, that'll do mentality incidents that we are still living with today. Chernobyl, the Holodomor, Aral Sea, these incidents, they are all just the tip of the iceberg's fucking tip, and that iceberg is rooted deeper than the Marianas fucking Trench. And some people will say, oh, what about Fukushima Daiichi in Japan? Well, first of all, we actually don't have any radiation-related deaths. No workers or members of the public were reported to have died from acute radiation sickness as a direct result of the Fukushima Daiichi disaster. Yes, there were evacuation and stress-related deaths due to the temporary displacement of 150,000 people, but these happen in any mass evacuation for any big disaster. In fact, Fukushima is basically safe today. Most evacuation orders were lifted and, radiation is down significantly. The only places that are vacant are those closest to the plant for an abundance of caution. And even then, look at Kyle Hill's work and videos. The plant itself is a pretty calm affair. And Fukushima, like Chernobyl, was caused by mismanagement and complacency. This wasn't an inevitable disaster. This was very preventable. The same wave that caused the disaster at the plant was predicted for years, and there was warning after warning, and the company involved didn't take the appropriate steps to prepare for this. And yet, the Japanese government responded, in the middle of a horrific disaster as a result of an earthquake and tsunami, to Fukushima with swiftness, incompetence, and effectiveness. If anything, Fukushima just shows off how safe nuclear energy is, not the opposite. So long as it is respected and handled properly, you can avoid disasters fairly easily. And in the case of a disaster, handled properly, You get Fukushima, an incredible success story in terms of recovery and cleanup and, well, saving lives. And this gets us back to the bombs. Why did, say, Nagasaki face such a horrific fallout? For one, a bomb is not a reactor. Unlike at a reactor where waste products are contained and handled, a fission bomb is going to scatter waste products everywhere. And this is ironically made worse by the Earth itself. Wind and weather will spread the fallout to neighboring regions, exacerbating the issue. When we combine that with the damage to critical infrastructure caused by a nuke in the first place, well, you get the end result. Fusion, on the other hand, is pretty much clean. I'm not going to get into it, but basically fusion bombs are achieved by fusion. Fusion isn't you don't necessarily need fission to achieve fusion. Okay. Basically, we haven't unlocked the ability to achieve fusion on its own for a sustained period of time. Yet, we're working on it. We, in terms of fusion bombs, actually need fission reactions to start the fusion reaction in the bomb. And if you thought everything else was an earful, this is worse, so we'll skip past it. Point is, fusion's clean, it's very efficient, could change everything if we actually, manage to master it, but right now, we need fission for it. So how have we achieved quote-unquote clean bombs? Well, firstly, no fusion-based nuclear weapon is truly clean. There's always going to be at least a tiny bit of fission to get things going, but we have figured out how to mitigate the fallout to the point that, well, in Ripple-designed fusion bombs, the nuclear process was 99.9 recurring percent fusion, with the remaining 0.00 recurring 1% being that of fission. Hell, even the Tsar-Bomba is considered clean-ish at 97% fusion. So wrapping all this up, the Havoc is clean in the sense that it doesn't produce a fallout, and frankly, it doesn't produce any fallout for that matter. Unlike real life, Halo's humanity has mastered fusion, so no fission is required for the Havoc. Who knew there was such a thing as a, well, environmentally friendly nuke? The Havoc's variants are as follows. The nuclear mine is a small black dome with no external indicators save for a thin slot on the face for a detonation key. There are also simple bounding strips which allows the Havoc to be attached to different surfaces. As mentioned earlier, it can only be detonated remotely. This can actually be a problem as a ground return receiver is sometimes needed just to allow the signal to reach the damn thing. The Mark 2521 MFDD is more or less meant for excavation. Yes, we use nukes for excavation in Halo. It's a real concept, believe it or not. But the 2521 was used during the war as well. You can stick it to surfaces or carry it on a Pelican. The 2550 Bunker Buster is delivered via the air. It can be armed with an adjustable but set timer. Once deployed, the BB-2550 will deploy helical fins to stabilize and guide its fall. It's designed to impart most of the blast's energy downwards to bury and destroy subterranean complexes. One thing that's interesting is it apparently does have a small amount of radioactive fallout, similar to a real-life clean bomb, implying that the BB-2550 uses fission to start the fusion process. If so, why? I mean, if the goal was to irradiate, then why make the bomb even remotely clean? Just base it off the Teller Ulam design? Hell, just make a dirty bomb if you want to whatever. Anyone that knows nuclear stuff, please impart your knowledge. I'm an idiot about this stuff, like I said. Now then, the Mark 2556 is also considered excavation grade, but it can also be weaponized, as shown in Halo 4 when the Chief mounted it to a hardpoint of an F-41 broadsword. It has one hell of a feat as well, destroying both the Composer and Mantle's approach from the inside. The final known variant of the Havoc is Variant 5. Variant 5s are designed to maximize their yield in a vacuum. It's a warhead mounted to a missile and can be launched from the ground, the ship, or maybe even something like a longsword in theory. Next up, the Hornet Space Mine. Hornets are 30 megaton space mines typically carried by the UNSC Prowlers. These mines can be rendered borderline undetectable by cooling them to match the temperature seen in space. So about 2.7 Kelvin, give or take with some, variation given certain factors like, as an example, how close they are to the star. They use plutonium cores and their loads are vacuum enhanced. However, when transitioning from slipstream, Hornets can release a detectable amount of Cherenkov radiation, which can compromise the Prowler's safety if it wants to remain hidden. Though, to be honest with you, that's like the least of the Prowler's concern. The act of emerging from slip is pretty noisy no matter what, and it's a chaotic affair. The nuke would be the least of their worries, compared to the literal fucking teared reality that they just made. Whatever the case, it isn't uncommon for Prowlers to choose the non-nuclear M1011 Moray space mine instead. Next up, the Rudra. We don't really know anything about them other than the fact that their yields can be enhanced. They were used by the UNSC Port Stanley, a Prowler, so we can theorize that like the Hornets, these things can be stealthed. Not to the extent that the Hornets can be, but it's possible to make a missile, well, sneaky, as shown by the United States today with the AGM-158 El Razum. The Rudra is capable of destroying Covenant-made cruisers as demonstrated by the Port Stanley and is computer-guided. The Model 4093 Hyperion nuclear delivery system is a computer-guided nuclear weapon, and it's one of the largest missiles used by UNSC starships. For reference, the Hyperion size puts it at a length longer than some slipstream-capable starships. It has a multi-staged booster. When launched, an external accelerator, such as a silo, will fling the Hyperion to flight. From there, the Hyperion's rocketry will take control and guide the missile from there. Typically, a Hyperion will take several minutes to prepare, load, and fire, so they're commonly, not used in a rapid response scenario. They're employed by frigates and destroyers, like on the Trident, which has a silo containing 3 missiles. Hyperions contain about 1.9 metric tons of... Let me try here. A Lufos Deuterium Tritium Pure Fusion 9025. It's more than capable of completely destroying something like a CRS light cruiser, provided the cruiser's shields are down, because, just a quick side note, Covenant shields are really good at dispersing energy over a wide area. Next up, the famous Shiva-class nuclear missile. Funnily enough, the Shiva uses a fission-fusion reaction, so think the Teller-Ulam design. It's remotely operated and computer-guided, carried by either a longsword or starship. Its payload and yield can vary significantly. Given the potency of Shivas, the UNSC will only use them in situations where they are absolutely warranted. Shivas are carried by most warships on paper, though paper versus reality are two separate things. They will be stored in a vessel's nuclear storage bay until they're needed. Once launched, the onboard guidance systems will guide the missile to the intended target, but an AI or navigation officer can offer real-time course corrections if needed. There are 2 methods of detonating a Shiva: radio transmission code sequences or proximity fuses. Shivas will also release a powerful electromagnetic pulse which can damage or disable the electronics aboard nearby warships. Covenant capital ships can absorb a full Shiva blast with their shields from a distance. Some vessels, like the CAS-class assault carrier, can also absorb a direct hit with their shields. We know of at least 3 named models: the Model 947, used by Prowlers, the Model 2475, which we know was employed by Paris-class heavy frigates and C-718 longswords, and the VE-3 nuclear missile, which was a Shiva variant used by Preston Cole during the Battle of Psi Serpentis. And finally, we have the Nova Bomb. And you know what? I'm just gonna read Danforth's quote because it is fucking great. This is the prototype Nova Bomb, 9 fusion warheads encased in lithium triteride armor. When detonated, it compresses its fissionable material to neutron star density, boosting the thermonuclear yield 100-fold. I am Vice Admiral Danforth Whitcomb, temporarily in command of the UNSC military base Reach. To the Covenant uglies that might be listening, you have a few seconds to pray to your damned heathen gods. You all have a nice day in hell. The Nova is easily the UNSC's most destructive weapon of mass destruction, being a literal planet killer. It, in all likelihood, is more than likely the most destructive weapon used by anyone during the Human Covenant War. As mentioned by our wonderful friend, the Nova is a cluster of 9 fusion-based warheads encased in lithium triteride casings. armor, excuse me. Given the term fissionable was used, I'm assuming that, like the Shiva, this is a two-stage detonation, with fission being used to achieve fusion. When the warheads are detonated, the lithium tritiuride casings are pushed together in the center of the combined blast, subjecting them to untold amounts of pressure and heat, momentarily making them as dense as a neutron star. We only have two canon uses of a nova bomb. Two planets, Joyous Exaltation and Gleich, were the victims. When detonated in orbit above Joyous Exaltation, a nova ignited the planet's atmosphere, scorching a quarter of the planet's surface directly and shattering a moon in the process. Gleich had it even worse. The nova in question was detonated on the planet's surface. The bomb was so powerful, it overpowered the planet's gravity and disrupted the planet's structure, literally reducing it to a cloud of debris. Every living being in, on, and around the planet was instantaneously vaporized. And so, that's the UNSC sweaty confetti of atomic spaghetti. Any of you have a favorite? I know what the Imperium of Mans would be. I will see all of you in the cosmos, friends.